Boston College, they had him, but they just kept making mistakes and shooting themselves in the foot.
You are Locked On Boston College POSTCAST, part of Locked On Sports Boston, on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, this is the Locked On Boston College POSTCAST. I'm your host, AJ Black. Thank you all for joining us. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. So this game, Boston College ends up losing 26-21. You held yourself to, being close against the number 6 team in the country on the road. You battled back. You took a big lead to start the game. But still there's this empty feeling like, what if? Because Boston College had this game. They were in position to do what they needed to do, and they were not able to close the door. And they let Missouri back in. Once Missouri saw the offense get themselves rolling, that was it. Boston College was not able to hold on, and that was, it ends up being a close loss, but moral victories. Bill O'Brien says after the game, he's not into moral victories. It felt good to hold their own and to battle an SEC team on the road, but the mistakes ended up killing you. And, I see a lot of folks online, and I see the reactions that we all have. And I think it's important to realize two things, okay? Missouri is a very, very good team. They're a playoff caliber team, and they showed it today. That was what I had warned you all about all week on Locked On BC. I picked BC to lose this game by like 17 points because this is a Boston College program that, yes, they have a great new head coach. Yes, I like Bill O'Brien a lot, and I think Thomas Castellanos is a lot of fun to watch. But they're still working with the hand that was dealt by Jeff Hafley. And the roster's okay, but I still think Bill O'Brien wants his guys in there, right? So I warned you all. I said, just be careful. Don't get yourself too into this. And I thought going into this game, what I wanted to see was a competitive game. I did not expect BC to win. I picked them to, as I said, to lose. And I just didn't want to see them get, trounced. I didn't want to see them lose by, 17, 18, 20 points plus. And they didn't. They were in this game until the very end. And that is a very big positive. The fact that you went into this game down, a multi-score underdog. You jumped out ahead 14-3 at one point. You had the ball up, I think 14-6 when Castellanos threw that interception. And it felt like all the momentum was with BC. And then it all just goes. That middle, what do they call it? The eight, between the eights or whatever they called it. I've never heard that phrase before. Mitchell yell at me because I'm sure he's heard it. BC got smoked by Mizzou in that area. They gave up the field goal right before halftime. They let up a touchdown right out of it, halftime. It felt like it honestly felt like the wheels were going to fall off. And I think that's a big difference to talk about with Bill O'Brien versus Jeff Hafley, Steve Adazio, Frank Spaziani, was that those are the moments where I felt like those former coaches, this game would have got ugly fast. And credit to Bill O'Brien and his staff, they stuck in there. And they made this a game until that very last first down by Brady Cook. They didn't let this game get out of control. They didn't let things get to the point where you're like, well, this is just good old BC. It felt different. But there were still some big issues here that need to be addressed. And I think that's one of the things that we're going to leave this episode thinking is that Bill O'Brien is the coach that can fix things. This is a guy that's detail-oriented, that knows what he needs to do. And I have all the faith in the world that this is the kind of coach that's going to learn from what happened about his team, get them on the practice field and fix those things. I think he can do that. I think that's going to be a big thing with Bill O'Brien. So you go in, you lose this game. What's the big takeaway from this? I think the big takeaway was that BC belonged to be on that field with Missouri. I think that BC didn't execute to the right level that they should have in a bunch of different ways, and that ended up costing them this game. If BC played to the best of their ability, if they limited turnovers, if that run defense played any better, I mean, they got smoked up front, they would have won this game, but they didn't. You had 2 interceptions that were bad. You could not stop the run to save your life. And you let up some touchdowns, and that was it. That was what cost you this game. Thomas Castellanos, he did some of those things that Thomas Castellanos can only do. I mean, that touchdown pass to Reed Harris was crazy. But you saw the bad Thomas Castellanos come out too. We'll get into that in a little bit. But from here on out, how does this change your perception of Boston College football? I still feel pretty good about them. I still feel very strongly that Bill O'Brien's the right head coach and that he's going to get this program ticking. And I feel strongly that this team is not only going to be bowl eligible, but going to be very competitive in the ACC. I still feel strongly about all those points. I looked at this game as the toughest game Boston College had on their schedule, and they only lost by 6 points. I look at the rest of their schedule, and I see lots of games that BC can either win or they're going to be right in it. I don't see, other than maybe like Louisville, who's always been tough for BC, I don't see any other games on their schedule where I'm going, oh man, just chalk that up as a loss. Because I think this team is good enough to win against anybody. I think they're good enough right now, the way Virginia Tech's playing, to go into Blacksburg on Thursday or Friday night and win that game. I think they can beat UNC. I think they can beat Pitt. I think they can beat Syracuse. I think they can win a lot of these games. So I feel, and we'll get Mitch on this on Monday's show, but I think they're very primed to beat Michigan State next week. I think that is a key. So I feel after this win that Boston College is in great shape. That yes, there were issues, and believe me, I'm not saying this game was perfect, and I'm not saying that they played well. There was definitely problems here, but I trust this staff with what they have to fix some things, to get things better. And I hear the words that they're talking about after the game, and they sound like the Patriots out there. They sound like, Bill Belichick type, automatons. Like if you listen to like Brady and Gronk and all those guys, they would all say the same things that these guys are saying. And that's good. They're buying into the system that BC has. And yes, it didn't end up winning. And yes, they made more penalties than they needed to. They left points out there. But I think this team is good enough to turn this around. And this is just a one bullet point in a season that has 2 more months to go. So I don't want, I think I imagine there's some folks out there, and I hope there's not many, that are going, oh, this is a time to pump the brakes because Bill O'Brien lost. If your takeaway from this game is that Bill O'Brien is not the head coach that you thought he was, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what you were looking for going into this game. I thought, there was issues here, but it wasn't like this. You're not watching like what Florida State just happened against Memphis, where there's all these big monster problems. They're all fixable things. That's what coaching and what teams do. This team has never been built to be like Georgia or Bama or any of those schools. They're built to learn and grow. This is year 1 with not even his roster. I think things are going to be okay. In a moment, let's talk about the offense. And I want to talk about 2 big things that came up on the offensive side of the ball. Well, actually 3 things. The running game, or lack thereof, Thomas Castellanos and his good/bad day, and what's going on with Drew Bowery and how bad of a problem is this going to be if he's out. We'll get into all of that in just a moment. When you're hiring for small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the job. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who are actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users often visit other leading job sites, but they don't do it enough. They should be going to LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. So you need to check it out because 2.5 small businesses are using LinkedIn for hiring. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. It's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performances. With superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car your number one ride or die. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. This is Locked On Boston. Welcome back to the Locked On Boston POSTCAST, Locked On in conjunction with Locked On Boston College. I'm your host, AJ Black. Thank you all for checking us out, and make sure to subscribe to this channel and Locked On BC before you head out today. Now, the offense did not play the way that I thought they would. We ended up seeing Thomas Castellanos throw the ball 28 times for 249 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions, and go along with 2 sacks. But the bigger issue here, we'll get to Tommy C in a little bit, was the fact that they only ran the ball 68 yards. They averaged 1.9 yards per carry. Mizzou's defensive line bottled up BC pretty well. BC just could not run the ball. It seemed at one point that, it seemed as the game went on, BC became incredibly pass heavy, especially when they started getting behind. It was like all Thomas Castellanos throwing. And that caused some 3 and outs when in key situations where they really needed to have some drives become something. And so that was tough and, easy to be critical of. And you honestly should be, right? Like they've been known to do that, but the offensive line, I thought, had a real tough time. Missouri's defensive line was really good. They caused pressure. They were all over the place. They fast, physical. They did everything they needed to do against a BC rushing attack that was averaging like 240 yards per game. Not the best rushing attack for BC. And I think that really was critical in allowing the Tigers to come back in this game, because you saw that first drive. BC had the ball for like 8 minutes and they scored that touchdown to Jerome Bradley. That was about as perfectly scripted a drive as you could ask for. Like, you could not ask for anything better. They went for it on 4th down. They were aggressive. They were picking up 3rd downs all over the place. That was exactly what they needed. And then it just stopped. Like, they just couldn't go back to that way. And they score another touchdown. It was a fluky one to Reed Harris. I don't know if you watched it. It was like Thomas Castellanos fumbles the snap, kind of scuffles around, and then finds Reed Harris, who's wide open, and he runs it in for 70 yards. As Eli Drinkwitz said after the game, they scored on two broken coverages, and I think he's kind of right. This one and Kamari Morales later in the game. There's no lie detected, and that's not saying anything against BC. It was broken coverages on both of them. But after that, I just felt like BC couldn't run the ball. They just couldn't do what they needed to do. And I thought that was really critical, because those kinds of long drives, as I said, was a really key going into this game. Like, you wanted to keep Brady Cook on the sideline. But as the game went on more, it was BC's offense that was on the sideline, because they just couldn't get anything going. And then that just led to the floodgates opening for Missouri's offense. So I don't know if it was the game plan, or if they just saw that their offensive line was getting their butt kicked by Missouri. But whatever it was, the run game just was completely ineffective in this one. It just was not, and that was a big problem. So that was one thing. Then we got to talk about Tommy. Tommy started the game off great because he threw 2 touchdown passes to Reed Harris and Jerron Bradley, as we mentioned earlier. And then the wheels fell off. And I had been waiting for this to happen to him. I know Bill O'Brien has said he's taken a 180, and I was hoping he would. And for the most part, he has. Against Florida State, he was great. He throws an awful interception that basically turned this game on a dime. That first interception he had, all BC, they were up 14-3 or 14-6, whatever it was. And they had just been in control. They just needed to salt down the time a little bit, maybe get a field goal, and you're feeling pretty good about where things are going. Castellanos throws it in a double coverage. As he said after the game, he got greedy, and it let Mizzou just find their breath again and just start pouring it on. After that, I think it was after that interception, Missouri outscored BC 24-3 up until that Kamari Morales touchdown. It was such an integral mistake. And was such a big one because after that, I think Mizzou scores a touchdown. Then they hit a field goal before halftime. And they score after that. So it was just like, it was a lot of dominoes. And it was just one of those bad reads that Castellanos makes. He has the second mistake that comes in the third quarter. And that was more on, I think, his arm strength more than anything. And, not a knock on him. He just didn't have enough juice behind the ball to get, I think he was looking for Jaden Skeet on that one. Was he Jaden Skeet or Lewis Bond? He just didn't get enough. And he was either Skeet or Bond, whoever he was looking for, was open behind the guy that ends up picking it off. It's just Castellanos underthrew it so much. So those were 2 big mistakes. And they ended up costing BC. And I would argue, yeah, they cost them the game. That was one of the bigger issues. When we talk about the defense, I'll explain why. Yeah, there were some mistakes on defense, but I think the mistakes, and I said Castellanos has to play a very good game, and he didn't. He even said it after the game. He goes, "How would you grade your performance?" He said, "Terrible." I wouldn't be that hard, and I'm glad he's hard on himself because he did make some nice plays, and but he couldn't run the ball. Like, basically, Missouri kept him bottled up, and his throwing just wasn't there at times. Like, he just couldn't find guys. And so I thought he had a major issue. And the final big problem that came up was an injury later in the game. And that was to Jude Bowery. And this is concerning, a big concern for me, because he is your starting left tackle. And I've heard, he got hurt last year. He got hurt during camp. This is like the 3rd injury, and I'm worried that this is going to become a trend. And I hope it doesn't, because he's a good player. But if you lose your starting left tackle, that is a big problem. I don't know how long he's going to be out. I don't know what the injury is. We'll have to wait to see this week if he actually practices again. But they need him, because you put Kevin Klein back there, and there's a very big skill difference there. I think Jude Bowery is a much better player. I don't know what you're going to do. My thought, if I was Bill O'Brien, I would not keep Kevin Klein at tackle. I just don't think that's a good idea. I think if Bowery has to miss time, what I would do is put Logan Taylor back at tackle. Push him back to tackle. He did it well enough last year. He can do that. And then put Dwayne Alec back out there, because I think Dwayne Alec is good enough. I think that would have to be your answer if you were to if you're going to miss Jude Bowery time. And I hope that's not the case, because he needs to stay healthy. He needs to be out there. So he is the final piece of this offense. Like, that was it. And as I said, they scored 21 points, and I don't want to take Eli Drinkwitz's side, but I think he's kind of right that 14 of those came on broken coverages. A little concerning that they weren't able to move the ball that much. But again, I go back to, you're playing Mizzou, a team that did not let out any points that first 2 weeks. They're a good, and I think against Ohio State last year, they let up 7 points to Ohio State. They're a good defense. They're a playoff caliber team. So I don't take scoring 21 points against them lightly. And I don't think it's that big of an issue. It was just what we saw. And I think that's a problem and worth talking about. Now, in our final segment, We're talking about that defense. Let up 450 yards. Is there concern, or was this just a really good offense that you just ran into? We'll get into all of that in just a moment. Fuel up with Factor's no prep, no mess meals. Meet your wellness goals thanks to the menu of chef-crafted meals with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So no matter how busy you are, you'll always have time to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals. Make the day better with as you kickstart off a new healthy routine. What are you waiting for? Keep kitchen time to a minimum. I hate being in the kitchen. I'd rather do anything else other than that. With Factor meals, you're ready in 2 minutes. No shopping, no prepping, cooking, or cleaning up. Just from your fridge to you. Can't beat that. Head to factormeals.com/lockedoncollege50 and use code lockedoncollege50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's code lockedoncollege50 at factormeals.com/lockedoncollege50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. This is Locked On Boston College. I'm your host, AJ Black. Thank you all who have joined our Eagles Nesters. I love to see you guys up there. You guys have sent me messages. I have a special note coming out to you after this game. I hope you guys enjoy all that. I forgot to put my X thing up there. So for Twitter, I don't call it X. Now, let's talk about this defense. Defense lets up 400 plus yards. First, game where they struggled. There was two things that you want to look at when you look at obviously against a good offense, how they do against the run, how they do against the pass. Against the run was the bigger concern for me in this game, and I'll explain why. If you watched some of those runs, just the schematic setup of those runs, Mizzou's front offensive line was pushing BC's defensive line off the ball a yard or two back before the running back would even get to the line of scrimmage almost on every play. Noel, their running back, I mean, if you're any running back, that is the best that you can ask for, right? They smoked BC up front. And for me, that was a bigger issue. I was honestly surprised that Drinkwitz didn't even go back to that more. They were running those outside schemes, like outside reads and sweep kind of plays a lot, and BC could not stop them. They didn't have the speed to do it, and they didn't have the power to do it. Drinkwitz just started getting cute with some of the passes and stuff, which I guess you got to do to keep them honest. But I thought BC had no answer to their run game, especially once they started getting going. And to me, that was a big problem. The other was the passing game, and I want to talk about why I don't think it's as big of an issue as some folks might make it out to be. You were playing one of, if not the best receiving unit in the country. Luther Burden is the best wide receiver in the country. There's no question about that. He is incredible. He will be playing on Sundays, and hopefully he can figure out all the penalty stuff because that was nuts. But I don't think it was that big of an issue that, I saw people, like some folks were complaining about Kari Johnson. If you're on Luther Burden, unless you are an elite cornerback, which I don't think BC has elite quarterbacks. I'm talking like the guys like you'd see on Georgia or Bama. You're not going to have answers to them. And I think a lot of the tackling issues with Burden came because he is just so fast and quick. Just think about with Zay, right? When you watch guys go against Zach Flowers, as the SEC network called him, were you watching them going, oh, that guy's a stinky tackler. What's going on with his tackling? No, you just knew that Zay was that good. Luther Burden's kind of like that. And they had other guys on their team that were good receivers too. So there were some tackling issues, I think, that were there. They definitely did. But was it something so dramatically bad that I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going on here? No. I think you ran into an absolutely elite wide receiver with a good quarterback that was able to move the ball around a little bit. Burden beat you. He did what you didn't want him to do, which was score touchdowns, move the ball. He's very, very good. So I look at the defense in that piece, and that doesn't concern me as much as how much they got beat up in the trenches. That's, I think, the bigger issue. I think getting beat up against the run, I thought was a bigger problem. Now, when I look at this whole game, we're going to wrap things up here. I'm not I really am not more concerned than I was 6 hours ago. You played the number 6 team in the country. You battled them. You were a third down away from getting the ball back to potentially win that game. And honestly, that play call against Brady Cook with Brady Cook scrambling was a beautiful play call by Drinkwitz, because I saw folks like, why didn't you stuff the box more? Because and I'm sure he would have kept that play call. If you stack the box and try to hone in on that running back on the play that they called that Cooks scrambled for that first down, they would have scored a touchdown there. There would be nobody to stop him. The only reason he didn't score, which I guess it doesn't really matter, but he would have just took it off. There would have been no one to stop him. So I thought they were, it was not the best. And I think that goes back to everything O'Brien teaches. From the highs of the wins to the lows of the lows, everything should be a teachable moment for this team and for this program. Will they learn and build from this? I have the faith that they will. I have the faith that Bill O'Brien is a good head coach and knows what happened and will be able to work to address it. Whether it's the penalties that reared their other ugly head, whether it was the punting again. I don't get me started on the punting again. Candotti doesn't start. You get Savenko and Stone. Neither of them look great. Actually, no, that's not fair to Savenko. Savenko had that nice punt to like the 9-yard line. But I want to say it's a loss. I'm very excited from where this program can still go to. I'm very excited to see what they're going to do against Michigan State. I think they can win that game. I think they will win that game. And I still think this team is better than what folks thought they were going to be at the beginning of the season. Thank you all for listening. We'll be back again on Monday on Locked On Boston College. And I will be not live. I will record with Mitch to talk about him because he was at the game. He actually was in the press box, Mitchell Wolf of Eagle Insider. Next week, I will be doing a postcast, probably from the press box again. I probably have to, but I'm going to be in a tired buckaroo because it's an 8:00 start and I go to the press conferences. So I'll be recording. I hope you guys have some coffee going. I'm going to need a coffee myself because I'll be recording at like 12 or 1:00 at night before I even get to go home. But I love doing it. I love all of you who have checked out Locked On Boston College POSTCAST. Hit that like and subscribe button before you head on out. I want to brag again. There's the Red Sox, the Patriots. We have the most views and the most interactions of any of the podcasts that do this. So thank you all. This is AJ Black. I'll see you guys all again on Monday for another episode of Locked On Boston College. Your team every day.